What's going on, champs and chambits? It's FireMonkey here, and we are over on the Naraka Bladepoint test server once again to actually showcase some of the upcoming things coming to the game. And by upcoming, I mean some pretty interesting things. So firstly, we will be using the new hero Tessa in a match, showcasing, you know, the abilities and everything else of it. Talking about the cultivation, which you can kind of see right here for the first phase, is obviously just using the abilities once, playing 3 matches. I played a few matches behind the scenes, you know, just to test everything, make sure everything is working, and just kind of showcasing everything, such as the illustration right here. But something I think I should mention to you guys regarding this is a lot of the things we're going to be talking about are actually not translated yet, and those are all the things that start with NT underscore. Now, for example, this right here, if we go ahead and translate it, it roughly translates to Yuling doesn't like others telling her what to do. She doesn't like the plans of the hidden clan, the arrangements of her mother, and the dust-free reminders. Yuling XI only likes to do one kind of thing, what she thinks is interesting, with the quote at the very bottom being naturally, it is only with Tang Tong. Now, that could be kind of butchered, that could be kind of wrong, but that is kind of a rough translation of this character's description, you know, in the lore and everything else. But of course, it isn't just about the character here and their lore, because if we go over to the collection book, we can actually kind of see some designs here, so I'll go ahead and put the hairstyle back on the normal one right here. You can kind of see how it's a little bit different. I don't even know if that's the normal one, to be honest. You know, there's a lot of different hairstyles you're able to use, but I do think that since this one says NT right here, and since it's only for Tessa, that this is the normal hairstyle for Tessa. And then we'll go ahead and put on the base outfit. This is what the baseline version of Tessa will look like once you actually get them in the game, but of course through playing the game and leveling up the character through the cultivation and everything else, you will be able to get this point right here, which is another one of those outfits that you're able to just obtain, which compared to the original is basically just a color swap, but it is a nicer design overall. And I think on the back, do we have a different logo here? No, okay, it's the same logo on the back that it was on both outfits, but it is a nice little design. And then of course this one that I'm not for sure how you actually obtain as of yet is the legendary outfit that is set to release with everything else, but it also has a hairstyle matching with it, which is this right here. Now, the way you unlock it is really just kind of unknown. However, seeing as we're going to be getting the mythic chest very soon, or mythic, you know, treasure loot, whatever else, I think that since we also have these dual I'm about to butcher the name, you know what? Since we have the dual halberds right here that match the entire aesthetic of the legendary outfit, that it's going to be some of those rewards that are in that upcoming chest that is going to release very soon. But of course, we just kind of gotta wait and see. It just kind of would make sense with the whole entire outfit design, considering Tessa is already getting collab outfits and everything in the near future. But of course, on top of that, we also have like the Vixen little, like, you know, back piece right here, and then the soul carving version as well, just for, you know, getting different rewards and unlocks with the character. Now, in terms of, you know, like everything else, there really isn't too much. It's all basically just the baseline stuff. You have a little fox right here, which is kind of nice from the cultivation as well. But overall, you know, you have a pretty simplistic thing. And then of course you have different face styles. The two they give you by default is kind of like the one you see from all the trailers and everything else, and then kind of, you know, like a more normal face looking one. But of course you can modify those, do whatever you want. Now, in terms of like emotes and everything else, it doesn't look like they really have any emotes planned that are in the files for us to kind of showcase to you guys. Something I did notice is, you know, we have of course, you know, these exclusive event things, but I'm pretty sure those aren't really that important. But, you know, it's like in terms of the actual cosmetic side of things, it doesn't appear like much has been added to the test server as of yet for this specific character. But of course, we could see that added in the later lines, or I guess, you know, later updates. And then, for example, if you want to hear some of the voice lines, I'll go ahead and crank up the audio real quickly for you.
Aw, what a sweetheart. Yes. I could just eat you up. Come with me. Retreat. Oh, forgive me. You ready for a show?
So that is kind of like the aesthetic of the voice of the character and everything else, at least for the English version of the characters. Now, of course, you can go to your settings and change the language to a different language as well. So if we were to go over here into our settings, go to audio, I do believe it's down here somewhere. Yeah, hero voice. You could change it to different ones, which apparently we have the Void as a voice. What does that do? Okay, so here is the other character's voice, that option that I guess is like the Void option. Oh, I cut that one off, my bad. All right, and since that one was a little glitchy with the whole entire like actual language selector, we are going to go over here and see if there's a potential for a third language option here. See if it has a different voice. So let's go ahead and go back. We actually do have another voice. Okay. So this one, I definitely feels more like the Chinese voice option since, you know, it had the translation and everything else in there. But it is interesting to see the different voice options available to us. Now, of course, for the sake of this video, I am going to go ahead and put it back on English just because, you know, that I feel like it's the language that would make the most sense for the video overall. But it is nice to see that, you know, they have different voices and everything planned, and, you know, they have different voice actors. And the aesthetic kind of changes with the different character's voice you choose. Now, of course, this video isn't just about the new character, because if we go in game here and we run around, you may notice that the NieR X Naraka Bladepoint collaboration is semi-active. Now, I want to mention that the cosmetics are currently not in this version of the, you know, test build or anything else. Like, for example, right here is supposed to be a hologram of 2B, but of course the hologram is disabled, most likely because the outfit's not in the files. But we do have some things over here, like, you know, we have the machines, we have a little NieR themed version of the balls, which is, you know, very interesting, a very robotic-y version of everything else. Of course, you can still run over people, knock them over in the lobby and everything, but it is nice. And then if we look up in the sky, you can see the little, like, flying things up there. Now, I'm not too familiar with NieR's, like, lore and everything else to know what the flying things are. Well, those are something that weren't in the lobby originally, and it matches the aesthetic, so I would assume those are part of the collaboration. Now, something I did accidentally manage to get by working on the little, like, speedrunning area in the lobby was the event currency. If we go over here, we have this bolt currency, and the thing that is interesting to note here is it mentions that they expire September 13th, which makes me think that that is when we can expect, you know, another Naraka Bladepoint update, but also that this is going to be how long the NieR X Naraka collaboration lasts for. Now, typically when things expire, they typically mean, oh, hey, you know, there's going to be a point where the collab ends, but you are still able to, you know, actually spend the bolts as the currency and everything else until it actually fully expires. Now, the description is kind of, you know, a rough translation once again, but it says, Assistive Machine 24 converted the data I transmitted to it into a screw silk props. Now, I don't know what the screw silk props thing means, probably a little butchered, you know, messed up translation. What it also mentions can be used to redeem its stolen from the operating system, the reward. As you can tell, very butchered. Corresponding rewards can be redeemed in the new era activities. So it does appear that the NieR collaboration, the event is going to be called New Era, and it would make sense, you know, it does definitely, you know, match the aesthetic and everything else. Now, regarding the actual outfits and everything, I feel that the best way to show this is this image on screen that'll pop up for you, where you can see that there's going to be a mini game where you can earn a free avatar. There's going to be some Twitch drops where you can earn, you know, some free gifts and everything else. There will be a few in-game free rewards such as avatar icons, backgrounds, headwear, longswords, everything like that. There will be, you know, of course, the simple store cosmetics such as we have 2B, 9S, A2, Kane, all that type of stuff. We also have the Spectral Silk store cosmetics, which is interesting because that means that, you know, the store updates, these are going to be paid for outfits, but the Spectral Silk store updates mean that those are going to be outfits anyone can actually obtain, because Spectral Silk is just kind of gained by grinding out the game. For example, if we do the daily quest right here, we would get XP and everything else, but by leveling up, you actually do get Spectral Silk, and it's pretty easy to farm that type of stuff, because I think in the normal game, like in the live server, I have like 20,000 of that or whatever, so it's going to be interesting to see the price of the collaboration outfit that does end up releasing for free, technically, for people who are grinding the game. And then for the store updates, we also have weapon skins for the Great Sword, Katana, the Spear, the Dual Blades, and the Pole Sword, which, you know, it's interesting to see the kind of designs and everything else they got going on here. Now, those designs aren't currently in the game, because, for example, if we go over to the Great Sword and we look in the collection, we are unable to view the new design. That is just because, you know, they're not finished with it yet. It's going to be added on the 9th when everything else releases, so it is something to kind of keep your eyes out in the near future. But of course, that isn't the only thing we can talk about here. Now, Holoroth and the other map, which is the Morris Isles map, is going to be getting a slight little update with this collaboration, because they're going to be having the whole entire map's flooring changed, I would say. And the reason I say that is because on the map we're playing Hollow Roth right now, in this area up here, you know, above the Plumed Castle in the Grizzly Rise area, there was actually a lot of fighting going on, and we saw lunar tears on the ground, which is kind of like the white flowers from NieR Automata's, you know, whole entire lore and everything else, you know, from those games. And it was something that I went over to the area to test beforehand to see if it was over there, and it was not there. So I do believe that a lot of stuff that we're showing is kind of, you know, parts and pieces of the actual NieR X Naraka collaboration, and it isn't the full picture of everything you can be expecting, but there is a part of the NieR collab that is enabled in-game for us to view, and that's kind of interesting. I just looked over here and I saw, you know, the little like glitchy mountain or whatever. You can kind of see through it where it got cut off or whatnot, so that's a little interesting. But of course, now it's time for some actual gameplay where we use the Tessa hero, and we go ahead and try looking for the little bit of the NieR part. Now, the NieR thing isn't going to be anything too crazy, but it is in the game. Now, regarding, you know, anything else like questline stuff or whatever, or like how you'll get the collectible bolts and everything for the event, I'm currently unsure, other than, you know, the whole entire speedrunning activity, which is set to give you whatever the currently ongoing events currency is. And also, I want to apologize for you guys seeing this giant Naraka beta server text all over the screen. I know it can be annoying, trust me. As someone who wishes it wasn't there, I get it. But of course, you know, it is something that we just kind of got to deal with. And one thing I can kind of show you guys here is the polearm and greatsword combo, which is a new thing that it should be enabled in game right now. Of course, there's the little NieR collab. So let me go ahead and try this first. So if we go ahead and do some swinging, can we activate it? I don't know how to activate it. If you can, or if it, oh, there you go. Okay. So if you want to do the dual combo with the greatsword and the polearm, what you have to do is mid-swing, you switch to the other one. So for example, if we swing with this, then we switch to our second ability before the second hit, and we spam the attack to actually dual wield the two weapons and use them at the same time. So for anyone trying to do that new combination with the two, you know, heavy weapons and everything, that is how you're able to do it. But of course, for the NieR collab, you can find these little pods on the ground. Now the pods aren't anything too crazy. Once you interact with them, they will follow you around. You can see them kind of, you know, above you and everything else. Other people will be able to see them as well. But if we go ahead and take damage here, the pod will actually regenerate our shield. Or I guess, you know, your armor, whatever else you want to call it. But the whole entire reason the pod's doing that is because that's the, you know, basically the only reason. It's the mechanic version of just how the character's supposed to work, or I guess, you know, how the pod's supposed to work in Naraka Bladepoint. Now, luckily, you don't have the annoying sounds that you would have if you're playing the NieR game right now, because in NieR, you would hear, like, basically like a TV static sounding sound whenever you were near one of these little pods. But luckily, in Naraka Bladepoint, we don't have that. We just kind of have the shimmering sound that loops as your armor is being replenished. And I think that, you know, the shimmering sound, while it can be a little bit annoying, is way better than the TV static sounding sound that I had heard. Now, of course, I haven't really played any of the NieR games. I own both Replicant and, you know, NieR Automata, but I plan to play them in the near future once, you know, I get my whole entire, like, setup working and everything else for those games. I can go ahead and work on the FireMonkey Plus channel. So yeah, as you guys saw, we have an interesting little combo we're able to do using both of the great swords, I guess you would call it, just both of the heavy weapons in the game, and it's a pretty interesting combo. Now, I am curious, if we do like the heavy attack, can we combo that as well? You can combo the heavy attack, so that is interesting to see. And I want to see if we go ahead and do this attack first, switch over here, and then charge up. You can charge them up, and that is an interesting. Wait, were my eyes turning blue when I did that? But okay. Oh, that is going to be crazy when you actually get into combat, if you manage to pull it off, of course, because, you know, while you're charging up, anyone can attack you. But I thought my eyes turned blue for a second. Okay, it was just the way that the actual, like, coloring of the blue shader or whatever else you want to call it worked, but that is an interesting combo. And then, of course, on top of it, we have the new dual halberd skin right here, so I guess I could use that for a little bit while we attack this enemy, and, you know, just kind of showcase all the different little aesthetics and everything going on with the beta, because, hey, you know, I gotta show you guys every little drop of content that they've added to the beta, as much as I can at least. And then in terms of abilities here, if we go ahead and use this, it only uses 50% of your actual, you know, special energy and everything else, and then eventually it will enchant the enemy, which kind of stuns them for a few seconds, while also allowing their health bar to have a little bit of a, like, purple bar on it. Now the health that is purple is health that I've noticed goes away a lot faster whenever you hit them, so it's like a hit me point once you actually use the ability. But it is interesting to see how the ability, once fully charged, is a 2-charge system, where it's like, okay, you charge it up the first time, you know, you manage to get it very close and everything else, but then you have the second charge where you can either use that right away to hit them once again, or you can save it. Now something I did notice about that special ability, you know, our like ultimate, whatever else you want to call it, is that it works in a very odd way. So it's not like your normal ability where, you know, you're able to kind of just have it go all the way around you 360 degrees or whatever. It is something that, as we just mentioned, only does 50% of the actual progress bar, but on top of that, it also, when used, goes directly in front of you. So if we go ahead and use it here in the open to give you an example, it will hit whatever is in front of you, and it will go further than just, you know, point blank range, but it won't hit to the sides or anything like that, so you have to kind of have that point blank accuracy directly ahead for it to actually attack the enemy and hit them. I have tried using it before, you know, before I knew that, and I kind of would just spam it outwards like blup, 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 and it wasn't really working too well in my favor. But then, you know, now that I played a few matches and I fully understand it, I feel that that could be a little bit of an interesting note for anyone out there trying to actually use the ability and get a nice little, you know, boost off of it when it comes to damage and everything else. Now let me go ahead and eliminate this enemy right here before we take a little cut break to, you know, play through the match a little bit more. But as you can see, we are getting our armor refilled, and if we go ahead and take this armor right here from them, we notice that it's all the way down to the bare minimum, but it is slowly going up as it's healing it. Now, the little pod is not going to last forever. It does have a time limit, and once it expires, it will just kind of vanish from above you, and then you can find more around the game, and they'll actually spawn in areas you've already visited, so there is a chance that an area you already looted up and everything will have one of these pods sitting there once yours runs out. So you can go ahead and run around and definitely try finding them in different spots as much as you want to make sure you're getting all the benefits. And as you see right there, the pod is actually, you know, just vanished out of there. Now, it doesn't actually repair any of your weapons or anything. It only repairs the armor. It doesn't even do your health at all, but armor is a pretty nice thing for it to repair, especially with how much it can do. I do think it's a very, very good benefit. Now, something I'm not for sure if I actually mentioned properly here is that if we use the, you know, main ability, not the ultimate or whatever, it will go to wherever you actually throw it. So it's not something that's just going to, you know, poof right on the ground above you, or I guess, you know, below you, whatever else. It is something that you're able to throw outwards and actually attack enemies from a longer range. Now, it doesn't really do too much as damage. It's more of a, you know, just kind of rounding them out, but it does work pretty well if you kind of combo it with the actual ultimate ability. So if we go ahead and look up in the sky here, we can yeet it all the way over there, and as you can see, it actually is floating in the sky, so it is something that you're able to kind of have a lot of versatile range with. Now, regarding how useful that will be, it really just kind of depends where you're trying to aim, right? You got to get used to how far it's actually going to be thrown outwards in regards to, you know, everything else, and then it could be a very effective thing, especially just kind of, you know, make the enemies a little dizzy. So if we go over here, for example, use that, as you can see, it did do a little tiny bit of damage, but it was more so just kind of to disorient them. And then, for example, if we go over here and we use our ultimate ability, we can use it twice here, and as you see, we now have 2 of those little orbs, because it does technically count as using the ultimate twice, and it does, you know, enchant the enemies, make them a little just kind of wonky and everything else. But it is very interesting to see how the combinations are actually going to be used in game once you manage to figure out how to, you know, combine all the different abilities together to get everything out in a unique way where it's actually just like super effective just against anything. Because, you know, you throw it down, disorient them, you know, make them a little dizzy and everything else, and then you just whack them back and forth with a sword or whatever, and then boom, they're gone out of here, back to the lobby. Alright, now that the match is finally ended, we can go ahead and see the second stage of the cultivation quest. So if we go ahead and go through here, we unlock the Greater Understanding cultivation. We also unlock this, which I'll go ahead and translate in a very short moment. But something I want to mention here is that we see these new skill unlocks. When I tried to look into this earlier, it did not work for me. It showed the mech actual, like, unlock videos or whatever, so I'm going to quickly read it. And it is a range control attack, so it's the tail attack, but an array version. If we click here, yeah, see, it's just going to load the mech video, so that is not useful for us. That is not really anything we could use. But for the second stage of all the challenges, all we have to do is travel 1,000 meters using grappling hook, buy any item from a rift dealer, and defeat 2 enemies. So pretty simple challenges. And then for that, you unlock another ability, a little selector, and then also you have this right here for traveling 4,000 meters as Tessa in the survival modes, which gets you that rare outfit we talked about a moment ago. So as you can see, that's a little bit of the area of the whole entire, like, unlock system and everything they've got going on here. here, but I felt something that could be useful for you guys if I went over here, I took a screenshot of all this type of stuff, and I tried translating it in the best way possible so you had a better understanding of what they did. So on the left side, we have the tail attack. The first description says, use the foxtail to hit the enemy next to you and get foxfire for 3 seconds. It will detonate when it is hard and straightened by an attack, repelling the surrounding enemies again. So basically, the actual upgraded version that is above us is a little bit of a foxfire version, which makes it so that when you hit an enemy after they've been stunned by the foxtail, you will actually repel enemies away from them and also do a little bit extra damage. We have attack array, which is the selected one that we've been using right now, which says release the foxtail in the aiming direction and generate a tail fire formation for 6 seconds. So enemies entering the formation will be pulled to the center of the formation and take a small amount of damage. So that is what the one we were using did, right? It just did a small amount of damage. On the right side, we have a Vertigo lead, which, is a little bit of a poor translation here. It also has the alternate version being sacrifice, but the top right one is release the fox spirit in the direction of, an enemy or whatever to capture the enemy's soul and store it in the spirit weapon. The enemy needs to interact with the spirit device within 6 seconds to receive the soul or retrieve the soul card. Otherwise, it will enter the speed soul state for 3 seconds. When it's in that state, it will consume 50% of your anger, of course, but it will also make it so the enemy slowly moves in the direction of the spirit weapon. So basically, it makes them enter the state where they're just kind of slowed. We also have Sacrifice, which is the, second one on the right side, which says release the fox spirit in the direction of aiming to capture the enemy's soul pure and store it in the spirit weapon. The enemy needs to interact with the spirit weapon to retrieve the soul mirror within 6 seconds, otherwise it will lose a certain amount of physical strength. When the enemy loses his physical strength, he will greatly restore Yuling's Ball's physical strength. So what I think this is going to do is make it so that when you actually have this selected, you'll be able to get a little bit of a boost towards your strength and everything else when used. So when we go ahead and go over here, we could probably go into the advanced tutorial, or I guess the free training mode, for example, and hopefully it doesn't force us to do anything particular, so I can kind of show you how the ability works. Alright, now that we're in free training, I'm going to go ahead and go to our settings here and give us full rage, and then we're going to use both of the different variants of the effects. So firstly, if we use the F effect, you see this one is actually like a tail whip right around us, so it's not something that is going to actually be, long range like the other one we were using. This one requires you to get up close, but it does kind of, knock them back, stun them for a little bit, so that is something interesting to see. And then if we use this version of the ultimate, you can see it still kind of goes forwards, but what is going on here is that they have to actually go for this little orb, and if they don't get it in time, as you saw right there, they took some damage and they got stunned a little bit. So that is something interesting to see, and if we go from a little bit further away, this is probably the better way of using it so that, they have a longer distance of actually reaching this. But then right here, once again, they take quite a bit of damage. It doesn't even do armor damage. It does actual damage to, their health. So if we go ahead and do this a few more times, right? For example, if we hit them one more, I wonder if we could actually eliminate them without even breaking their armor fully. I know their armor is really low, but still, this kind of ignores armor completely, so it is a possibility, and that one just didn't do anything. So let me go ahead and go a little bit back. I think it's because, they had a few seconds of immunity, but if we go ahead and see here, it should just eliminate them. Boom, just like that, they of course regenerated their health because of the fact that we are in the training mode, but it was interesting to see how different this version of it is and how the two different effects can work. So instead of, doing the whole entire close range thing where it kind of sucks them together, the actual ability here, your main ability will actually push them away from you, and then your main rage ability still has the 50% loss system and everything else, but there's a difference between the other one we used and this one. Of course, this one, you see, of course, it does a little bit of knockback, does a little bit of that normal damage, and then if we go ahead and go over here and switch it to the one we were using, go ahead and give our rage fully back up and use it once again, you can see that of course the color is a little bit different, but when it actually goes fully out here, instead of dealing damage, it's going to enchant them. Now the enchanting thing forces them to where the orb was, but it also makes it so that they have a few seconds where they can't move or anything, where you're able to do your own combination as well. So yeah, in terms of this update, the new character is very interesting. I hope you guys enjoy this nice little in-depth little guide on how everything works and everything, everything going on with the collaboration. If you did, consider subscribing and support the content I create, and of course, I'll catch you guys next time with another upload. Peace out.